They say you should never mix business with pleasure. I learned that lesson at 62 years old, standing in the marble foyer of a Pacific Heights mansion, watching Maharani Devika Mehta descend her staircase like liquid silk poured over stone. She was 70, recently widowed, and according to the threat assessment file clutched in my weathered hands, someone wanted her dead. I was Tamsin Okafor, former Secret Service, current private security consultant, and absolutely, categorically not supposed to notice the way her silver sari caught the afternoon light, or how her jasmine perfume made my carefully constructed professional walls crumble like ancient ruins. But I did notice. God help me, I noticed everything. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, hand-delivered by a courier who wouldn't meet my eyes. Inside, a single photograph of Devika Mehta, tech mogul, philanthropist, and according to Forbes, one of the most influential women in Silicon Valley, and a check with more zeros than I'd seen since leaving federal service. Ms. Okafor? The voice on my phone was crisp, British accented. Mrs. Mehta requires discreet protection. The threats have escalated. I should have said no. At 62, I'd earned my garden and my peace. 23 years protecting presidents and prime ministers had left me with a bad knee, recurring nightmares, and a divorce decree that cited my emotional unavailability. I'd promised myself no more clients, no more hypervigilance, no more sleeping with one eye open. But something in that photograph haunted me. Devika sat in a sunlit conservatory, surrounded by orchids, reading. Her face held the kind of beauty that time enhances rather than diminishes. Sharp cheekbones, eyes like polished mahogany, silver hair swept into an elegant twist. She wore her 70 years like a crown. "When do I start?" I heard myself say. The mansion exceeded even San Francisco's extravagant standards. Built in 1924, renovated with impeccable taste, it perched on a hill overlooking the bay like a jewel in a velvet case. Devika herself answered the door, and I felt the earth tilt slightly on its axis. "Ms. Okafor, please come in." Her voice carried the musical lilt of her native Mumbai, softened by decades in America. "I apologize for the dramatics. My son insists I'm overreacting." "Mothers are never overreacting when someone sends death threats, Mrs. Mehta." "Devika, please." She led me through rooms that belonged in museums. "The Mrs. feels like wearing someone else's coat since Rajesh passed." I noted everything professionally, sightlines, entry points, vulnerable windows. But unprofessionally, I noticed how she moved, unhurried, graceful, completely at ease in her skin. She wore casual elegance, cream silk pants, a cashmere sweater the color of burnt orange, bare feet with toenails painted deep burgundy. "Your file says you protected 3 presidents," she said, settling onto a velvet sofa and gesturing for me to sit. "Why private security now?" I got tired of taking bullets, meant for men who barely noticed I existed. Her laugh surprised me. Rich, genuine, unguarded. "I think we'll get along beautifully, Tamsin. May I call you Tamsin?" "On one condition, you take these threats seriously." "I take everything seriously, except myself." She leaned forward, and I caught that jasmine scent again. "Someone wants to frighten me away from my Senate testimony about AI regulation. They've miscalculated. I don't frighten easily. That's what worries me. Living in someone's home changes the dynamic. I'd protected dignitaries in hotels, safe houses, motorcades, always maintaining professional distance. But Devika's mansion became my world, and she was everywhere in it. Mornings, she practiced yoga in the solarium. I tried not to watch her move through sun salutations with a flexibility that defied 7 decades, tried not to notice how morning light gilded her skin, tried not to think about anything except perimeter checks and threat assessments. I failed spectacularly. "Join me," she said one morning, catching me in the doorway. "All that tension in your shoulders will slow your reaction time." She wasn't wrong. I found myself on the mat beside her, following her quiet instructions, hyper aware of her presence. When she adjusted my posture, her hands firm and warm on my spine, I forgot to breathe. "Better," she murmured. "You carry the world on these shoulders, Tamsin. Sometimes you must set it down." Evenings were worse. Devika actually cooked, refusing her chef's services, and insisted I join her. "I don't eat alone," she declared. "It's depressing and you need proper food, not whatever protein bars I've seen you consuming." We ate dal and fresh naan, Moroccan tagines, Italian risottos. She told stories about building her first startup in a garage, about losing Rajesh to cancer 3 years ago, about her daughter in Doctors Without Borders, and her son who thought she should retire and act her age. "What does acting one's age even mean?" she asked, refilling my wine glass. "I'm 70. I've earned the right to act however I damn well please." I found myself laughing more than I had in years, found myself sharing things I normally kept locked away. My mother's death when I was 16, my ex-wife's frustration with my job, the satisfaction and cost of a life spent protecting others. "You have kind eyes," Devika said one night, studying me across the candlelit table. "But sad, so much sadness there. Occupational hazard? Or perhaps you've been protecting everyone except yourself." The observation cut too close. I stood abruptly, falling back on protocol. I should check the security feeds. But I felt her gaze follow me, warm and knowing, as I retreated to my professional fortress. The threats escalated, packages with dead flowers, emails describing exactly what they'd do to her, a brick through the conservatory window that missed her by inches. I tightened security, varied routines, slept even less than usual. "You can't protect me every second," Devika said softly, finding me at 3 a.m. reviewing camera footage. "You'll exhaust yourself." "That's my job. Your job is keeping me alive, not killing yourself in the process." She set down chamomile tea I hadn't asked for. "Come, sit with me, just for a moment." I couldn't refuse her. I never could. The breaking point came during her annual charity gala. 200 guests, impossible to vet completely, and Devika radiant in emerald silk that made her eyes luminous. I stayed close, scanning faces, reading body language, my hand never far from my weapon. "Dance with me," she said during the orchestra's rendition of an old jazz standard. "Mrs. Mehta, Devika, I need to maintain position." "You can maintain position in my arms just as easily." She took my hand, and suddenly we were moving together, her body warm against mine. "Relax, Tamsin. You're wound tight enough to shatter." I was acutely aware of everything: her perfume, the silk under my palm, how perfectly we fit together despite my 5 inches of height advantage. She felt like coming home and falling off a cliff simultaneously. "You know," she murmured near my ear, "I haven't felt this alive in years, even with the threats. Maybe because of them, or maybe—" Her eyes met mine, dark and fathomless. "Maybe it's something else entirely." "Devika," my voice came out rough. "We can't." "Can't what?" "Feel what we're feeling?" She smiled, sad and knowing. "Too late, my dear. Far too late." The shot came at 11:47 p.m., shattering the ballroom's French doors. I had Devika on the ground before the glass finished falling, my body covering hers, shouting orders into my radio. Chaos erupted, screaming, running, security converging. The shooter escaped, but we found the rifle position. Professional setup, clear sight line. If I'd been a second slower... Back at the mansion, Devika was shaking. I'd seen her face down death threats with equanimity, but nearly dying changes everything. I should have called her son, her daughter, maintained professional distance. Instead, I held her. "I've got you," I whispered into her silver hair. "You're safe. I've got you." "Tamsin." She pulled back to look at me, tears tracking through her makeup. When that glass shattered, I thought I'd never get to tell you." "Don't." I cupped her face in my hands. "Don't say it." "Why not? I'm 70 years old. I've buried a husband I loved, built an empire, changed the world in small ways. I've earned the right to speak my truth." Her hands covered mine. "I'm falling in love with you, Tamsin Okafor, possibly already fallen, and life is far too short to pretend otherwise. I'm your bodyguard. You're a woman who makes me feel seen for the first time in decades, who looks at me like I'm beautiful, not despite my age, but including it, who—" I kissed her. God help me, I kissed her. The investigation moved quickly after the gala. The shooter was a hired gun, paid by competitors threatened by Devika's Senate testimony. Within a week, arrests were made. My contract was technically complete. "Stay," Devika said simply, as I packed my go bag. "I don't do permanent positions anymore." "I'm not offering a position. I'm asking you to stay. With me, as more than my bodyguard." She stood in the doorway of the guest suite I'd been using, backlit by afternoon sun. "I know it's complicated. I know you have reservations. But Tamsin, I'm 70 years old, and I've learned that the biggest regrets aren't the risks we take. They're the ones we don't. I'm 62, damaged, emotionally unavailable according to my ex-wife, and terrible at relationships. I'm 70, opinionated, stubborn according to everyone who knows me, and I snore." She smiled that smile that undid me every time. "We're not children, darling. We're grown women who've lived full lives. We know exactly what we're risking and what we're gaining." I thought about my empty apartment across the bay, my quiet, safe, lonely life. Then I thought about morning yoga in the solarium, dinner conversations that lasted hours, the way Devika looked at me like I was something precious. "I'm scared," I admitted, "of failing you, of not being enough, of being happy?" She crossed the room, took my hands. "Tamsin, we've both earned our scars. We've both survived things that should have broken us. Don't we deserve this, whatever this becomes?" I pulled her close, breathed in jasmine and possibility. "I don't know how to do this, the relationship thing. I'm better at taking bullets than taking emotional risks." "Then we'll learn together." She kissed me softly. "I'm rather good at teaching, you know." "Is that right, Professor Mehta?" "Dr. Mehta, actually. I have 3 PhDs. Her eyes danced with mischief. "But in this particular subject, we're both students." I laughed, really laughed, and it felt like shedding armor I'd worn for decades. "Okay. Okay? I'll stay. Not as your bodyguard, though God knows you still need someone watching your reckless back, but as whatever we're becoming." "We're becoming us," Devika said simply. "Two women who found each other at exactly the right time. Not despite our ages, but because of them. Because we finally know who we are and what we want." "And what do you want?" She smiled, pulling me toward her bedroom. Our bedroom now. "You, morning coffee and evening wine. Arguments about politics and adventures in cooking. Your hands in my hair and my name on your lips. Growing old together, which at our age is delightfully redundant." She paused at the threshold. "I want every remaining day I have to include you in it, Tamsin Okafor. Is that too much to ask?" "No," I whispered, crossing that threshold into my new life. "It's exactly enough." They say love doesn't have an expiration date, and they're right. At 62 and 70, Devika and I aren't starting our lives. We're living them fully, finally, fearlessly. We've both been through enough to know that what we have is rare and precious. Some people think we're too old for grand romance. Those people are idiots. We're not too old. We're exactly the right age. Old enough to know what matters, young enough to enjoy it, wise enough to protect it, and brave enough to choose it every single day. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to know that love has no age limit. Subscribe for more mature romance stories that celebrate women in all their complexity and beauty. Because our stories don't end at 50, 60, or 70, sometimes they're just beginning.